So we're on the way to North Johannesburg for a training given by a former Israeli soldier to white farmers. The farmers feel that they're under attack and that they need the right tools to protect themselves. We know Israel had close ties to the Apartheid government of South Africa, and it seems that those traditions remain alive today.
Give some a punch and I shift to the other side to basically to take my gun. To basically to be able.
How far does their training take them? Like would they shoot an intruder or would they kill an intruder?
I'm not saying to people shoot, kill, kill, kill. We say survive. Survive whatever is necessary for you to do to survive. Why you don't shooting first? It makes sense for him to shoot first or not?
I shoot you first, sir.
Makes sense or not?
Yes, sir.
So why you don't do it?
Do you feel that you're more attacked because of your skin color?
Well, in South Africa, it's a skin color thing.
So you feel like you're more at danger because you're white?
Yes.
Do you think you're the most at danger? Do you feel that within communities in South Africa?
Yes. Yeah. No, definitely.
Do you feel that there's a white genocide taking place?
For sure, for sure. It's going to cause a big war in this country.
Many people think in outside is like a crime thing. The South African people, the farmers are not suffering from crime. It's not a crime. The guy not coming here, give me your cell phone, give me your wallet, and he take the cell phone and take the wallet and, okay? No, it's not that.
But I'm sorry, but in the training that's what you guys say.
Where's the money? Where's the safe? Where's your safe?
That's not what they meant.
It's not mad, you know. I think maybe, yeah, they ask for, they're talking about give me the money, but it's not that anymore.
Yeah, to get into the mood.
It's not about they, it's about revenge, it's about the land, and it's about race, unfortunately.
The training was quite intense and seemed to focus as much on attack as defense. But the claims of these people were given a boost by a tweet in August by the President of the United States, Donald Trump, which led to international headlines on the issue. I wanted to find out who was behind the attempts to push this narrative and why. Talk about why genocide used to be dismissed as this crazy idea of a small fringe group of fanatics in South Africa, but it started to gain traction with the rise of the far right internationally. And that's partly thanks to the group that I'm now off to meet, the Sweatlanders. They've spent months of the past year in the US building far-right support for their cause, and recently even hosted the racist Alternative for Deutschland. The Sweetlanders think that a race war is imminent, and they're involved in training for an emergency action plan for the Christian white minority once that happens. Hello. Hi.
Yasmin, how are you?
So we've just arrived here and there's loads of people. It's looking pretty serious.
Oh, they do really bite. He's bitten over
Bark.
200 people. Oh, bark.
Bite? He's bitten over 200 people?
Yeah. He's a good boy. Very, very good-natured dog.
I'm confused if he's good-natured or if he bit 200 people. Are good-natured dogs ones? No, but seriously, that bite 200 people? I'm scared I'm gonna get bit, man. You know, Trump tweeted about the
Yes, thank God.
farmer situation. It was after your trip, I believe.
What's happening in South Africa is barely being reported. So for us, it was a moment of euphoria when Donald Trump had the strength of character to say, effectively, implicitly, this is not politically correct, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. We see a big crisis as long as things carry on like this. It doesn't mean that I privately wish that all black people would, die or something. It just doesn't mean it. As I explained to BBC, my first child is mixed race. I don't regret that for 1 minute of one day.
Are you still in touch?
Yeah.
Do you have a good relationship?
Our raison d'etre, our express purpose, is to function as a civil defense organization under international law to prepare to safeguard the welfare of our people in the event of a civil war or similar.
And what if black people wanted to come with you to the safe place? Is that allowed?
No, it's out of the question.
At this point, we set off on the so-called emergency training exercise with the Sweatlanders. Basically a drive around the area in convoy. We had tried to speak to other members of the group, but the spokesperson, Simon Rush, wouldn't let us. Something our producer witnessed would make it clear why. Earlier you had said that you didn't want us to speak to anybody else because you were worried.
No, it's not that I'm worried particularly. It's what I said was that we have a strict policy regarding that. If one of our members said something slightly politically incorrect, it would be exploited.
One of your members as in...
Yeah, one of the people
Here.
whose forte is not to represent us in an honest way. That's not their strength. Some plumber, you know.
I saw something that maybe wasn't like
we're just going to ask...
in tune with that. Just
What?
like a guy, I wasn't even speaking to him, but there was a guy there who, I think it was like a black man just walking past, and he simulated
shooting him.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's not a nice thing. That is
Just
the kind
not a
of
nice thing?
Well, no, you know, so much of this, you may or may not like what I'm going to say to you now, and it doesn't matter.
It's fine.
But
We don't have to
I'm
agree
going
on
to tell
everything.
you, I'm going to tell you what our experience is. The people who do that are employed by the state.
So this guy is employed by the state?
The people who cause trouble in our organization are agents provocateurs.
Do you not want to find him then?
Over and over. No, I didn't see the incident. I don't know who he's talking about.
But maybe Liam can point him out to you.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't know. I mean, I wouldn't know if he is secretly being employed by the National Intelligence Service. What I'm saying is over long periods of time, this is not the first, the second, the third, or even the 50th such incident.
Why do you think they do that?
To malign us, to make us look bad, to make us look worse than we really are. And that's why they would like nothing more than to discover that one of us has an illegal weapon or a stash of ammunition or...
Are you armed?
No.
Not at all?
No, not at all.
You're preferring for a civil war without being armed? That could be risky.
There's a big difference between an illegal weapon and a legal weapon.
So armed but legally armed?
Yeah, I'm not armed now. Not right at this moment. But do I have legal weapons licensed by the government, not by me, by the government? Yes.
Okay. We've heard a lot of talk about the so-called epidemic of white farm murders and even white genocide. But in this area here behind me of Ivory Park, there was 108 people killed in the past year. That compares to 62 farm murders. Kind of puts things into perspective. Yes, that's right. 108 people were killed in just one black township in Johannesburg, compared to 62 farm murders across the whole of South Africa. Indeed, according to figures by the South African police, republished by the respected fact-checkers Africa Check, there has been a steady decline in farm murders in South Africa over the past 15 years, from a peak of 140 in 2002 to less than half that in the past year. Hysteria around farm attacks has been ramped up at the same time as a real risk to the interests of white farmers has emerged, that of widespread land reform. The 1930 Native Land Act forcibly stripped land from black people, a policy which was later reinforced by apartheid. But now, the ruling ANC are considering amending the constitution to allow for the expropriation of land from white landowners without compensation, and to redress one of the historic injustices of apartheid and colonization. It's not the ANC though, but these guys, Julius Malema's economic freedom fighters, who have pushed the issue onto the agenda. The reclaiming of land is one of their cardinal pillars, as MP Tebogo Mokweli made clear when addressing white farm owners in a recent debate in the South African parliament.
And let me tell you, my brother, from another mother, we are going to take our land, whether you like it or not.
I went to the EFF headquarters in central Johannesburg to talk to Makweli about land, white genocide claims, and Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is a racist, and he's mad. We are not going to entertain Donald Trump. We are not accountable to Donald Trump. He's not our master.
Well, we visited also an ex-Israeli soldier, the ex-IDF soldier training, and they train white farmers to defend themselves against attacks. How real would you say this threat is that they're whipping up of fear of a possibility of a race war?
There's no war in South Africa. We are not going to fight them. They can train and do whatever. They are not, it's for them. They are alarmists, so they think that taking land will result to war. We are going to sit down with them. We are going to give them our terms. White South Africans has been raised in such a way that they are militant in nature. And they were taught racism from the word go.
So how can they turn around and say they are persecuted? No white person is persecuted because this country is racist. Racist as being anti-black. We speak in English. The court speaks in English. Everything here is white.
Andile Muitama is the leader of an even more radical group pushing for land reform. Black first, land first. They're taking matters into their own hands by occupying vacant land. But they're seen as controversial by some.
So the complaint is only because there's a new black person emerging. And that black person, hear what we say as black first, land first. Black first, land first. There's no argument amongst black people. We must resolve these things first before we can talk about a common humanity.
There are people who claim that actually the land wasn't stolen, that they bought it and legitimately. What do you say to them?
They will say that, remember in the history, white people used their apartheid system, and then they were calling us subhuman. When they get into the land and they find you are their property. That's how brutal they were. That's how insane they were towards us. And it's not true that they bought land. But anyway, we are not saying as the EFF we're going to chase them away. We are saying let the land that was stolen from us be returned to us.
Apartheid, an Afrikaans word meaning separation, was a system of racial segregation that governed South Africa from 1948 to 1994. It was officially made law by the Afrikaner-led National Party, who believed in the superiority of the white race and the Afrikaners' God-given right to the land. People were separated into 4 different racial categories: white, black, Indian, and colored. And laws were put into place to ensure the dominance of the white race over all others. These included black South Africans being physically forced into bandostans or homelands. Their only interaction with the white minority was when they were being exploited for cheap labor or being repressed by the authorities. And of course, non-whites had no political rights. But with repression came resistance, and the African National Congress, including Nelson Mandela, led the fight against the horrific system which was eventually dismantled in 1994. We're back on the road, heading even further up north into the Limpopo province. This whole thing's about land and farmland in particular, so we're gonna go check one out for ourselves.
fenomenaal vir jou. Dit is keep safe on the farm. Ons vra Here dat hy hierdie voedsel ook aan ons liggame sal seën en maak ons opreg dankbaar daarvoor. Amen.
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 We'd visited Yako and Elizabeth's farm, expecting to see the land and hear from the family. But soon we were being shown around a museum in his backyard, which paid tribute to the apartheid-era South Africa.
So we are quite really proud of it. I think or especially the whites, because it was the time before the new days here, the Mandela time, and so yeah, I think any person is still quite proud of that. Those days, as you can see on the pictures, they didn't wear clothes. They were still using hides and to protect and to clothe themselves. So new European ways of living started getting to them and so on. Yeah.
Do you feel it was safer under apartheid or better in that sense? Before 94?
Yes, I think a little bit. So I think we were in charge of many things, and it's better to be in charge than to be on the defensive, sort of. So
the visit got more disconcerting when they began defending Vicky Momberg, a white South African woman prosecuted for using a highly offensive word for a black person, not once, not twice, but 48 times.
Yeah, the woman that was she used the word that we're not supposed to say for a black man. It's a K word.
Never heard.
Okay, I can say it because it's on television. It was a cafe. They call it cafe, no? It was a word like in America, the niggers, they don't like to call you a nigger.
Before we left, another story. We heard that Yako had spent 3 years in jail for sheltering 2 white terrorists from the Boramag, a group who launched an armed campaign to overthrow Nelson Mandela's government and return the country to white rule. Their actions included bombing a number of cities and even a plot to kill Mandela himself.
And I feel it's part of the struggle that I've been in, and that's why I don't want to leave. I think it was worth it.
Do you also feel like it was?
We didn't do
worth
anything
it?
wrong.
But
Yeah,
is it something
definitely,
you're proud of
definitely,
him?
yeah. I'm very proud of him. Very, 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 yeah.
So, who owns South Africa? At the end of apartheid in 1994, 85% of all agricultural farmland was owned by white farmers. That has decreased slightly today, but the picture is still one of stark inequality. White people make up less than 10% of the population and own 3/4 of all farmland, or 73% to be exact. Black people constitute 76% of the population and own just 4% of farmland. Who owns South Africa? The answer is unambiguous. It's still white people. Not only do black people in South Africa have little access to land, but many are forced to live in poverty-stricken informal settlements, basically slums, like this one, Tembeli, just south of Johannesburg. They live in the shadows of society and have little access to basic services. But people I spoke to here, like Simpiwe, don't just blame the white man for that. They also blame the ruling ANC government.
We called it our house, but you can see, guys, this is not a normal place for a human being to stay in. We don't have taps inside. I'm using buckets to fetch water from outside to bring it inside. When I want to cook or want to bath, I don't go outside, I just use these buckets here. Sometimes we'll use this bed, 3 of us, because I've got 2 girls and 1 boy. 2 girls will sleep here, the boy will sleep that side alone. We are not free because when the zinc, you think of the zinc can fly because there's a lot of wind outside. When it rains, you want a corner where you can stand because the water is coming inside the house. But we've got government. So I just blame our government for this kind of life that we're living.
We've seen some pretty incredible and luxurious houses that white people are living in, farmers and in the city. How does that make you feel as you have been living in an informal settlement for 27 years or so?
Our government brings services here. While we have these dusty streets, we living in a informal settlement like this. So that is only my concern. When they come in to fix roads and stuff, my concern is they don't see this place that needs services. Why can't they take that money, put in an informal settlement so that we can get services? We want to enjoy the privilege of good services ourselves as the community of Thembelihle. We want to feel human.
Walking around the settlement, it was clear people wanted to speak to us and articulate their frustration at seeing so little change in their living situation.
Who's going to help us if it's not the government? Yeah. I want to know who's going to help us if it's not the government. Just because it's a long time, just because I know even it's not the ANC, but all the time we vote for ANC. But it's not the ANC. Anytime ANC promised us, they say we'll build the house, we'll put the water, we'll put the sewage, but they never do that things. From long time we stay here.
So the end of apartheid was meant to herald in a new era of economic and political justice. But here in settlements like Thembelihle, what has actually changed? South Africa remains to be the most unequal society in the world, where half of the population live under poverty. Over 14 million black South Africans live in settlements like this one, with little access to water, sanitation, and other essential services. Meanwhile, 10% of the population, the majority of whom are white, own 90% of the nation's wealth.
Apartheid is not over. Apartheid is alive. The sad thing, I think, with democracy is simply that apartheid is now managed by black people in the interest of white people. They don't have to go to the township to shoot us. They don't have to torture us. Trying, all that, there is a state that makes sure white people live their life in peace and black people remain excluded. This is a revolutionary war coming. I'm a revolutionary. No one can stop this war, I believe, except if there's justice.
No justice, no peace.
No justice, no peace.
I'm not about to start doing it, Theresa May, but maybe just the clapping. Black First Land First don't believe the ANC's land reform plans will achieve meaningful equality. So in places like this, they're mobilizing people to take land without permission and then building on it.
Here is a good example of what we will do with the land. Our people are building here. They're not waiting for government. They're not asking for handouts. These are poor, poor people, but they are building a community. This space was not claimed without suffering. Just this claim. So white farmers there on farms, when we come, they must not think that we're not ready to die. We are dead already anyway. If you have no land, what are you? You are a dead person. So it's better to die for land so that our children can live. That's why we're prepared. Land or death, we mean it.
Over 2 decades on from the end of apartheid, South Africa's economy and land remains largely in the hands of the white minority. It's clear there is no white genocide in South Africa, but there is a very real anger at the searing inequality, the ongoing apartheid which still exists. I couldn't help but feel that change is coming in this country, not led by the ANC, but by the people. In that sense, those among the privileged white community are right to be worried. There is a threat to their interests, the threat of equality.
We eat heads of chicken and feet of chicken. Who eats the drumstick? White people. No, we want a drumstick. We want the nice part of the chicken as well.